will, folks?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Kenny, if you could invite the jury and Mr. McEnroe, if I could invite you back up to the stand, sir.
Please rise for the jury.
Please be seated, folks.
Mr. O'Toole, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Mr. McEnroe, I think that when we took the break, I was asking you about the alibi that you thought up before you even left the Carnation property following the murders. Is that correct?
Before we left, we had thought that up before we had left on the 25th. Yes.
You recall, excuse me, do you recall saying on direct examination that you're the person who thought it up, not we, it was you?
Yes, so I did.
I can't hear you.
I don't recall saying exactly that, but that is correct.
Excuse me. And I think you told the jury last Thursday that as you approached the property, you saw the black helicopter, and you said, quote, "I realized that they had been found," unquote. They had been found means the victims of the murders had been found.
Yes, so.
And Michelle Anderson asked you, should we keep going?
Yes, so.
And you responded, yes. If it works, it works. If not, then not, unquote.
Yes, so.
And by saying that, you meant if you could pull off the cover-up,
Yes, so.
not in any way acknowledging your role in the murders,
Yes, so.
or telling the police the truth about what you'd done.
This is correct, yes.
Among the other things that you did during the course of the murders and during the course of the cleanup and
Yes.
following the murders, one of the things that you testified to was the visits that you made back up to the property following the murders. Recall that?
Yes, so.
I believe you testified last Thursday, quote, "We ended up going up there a couple of times as I would think of things I'd forgotten," unquote.
Yes, so.
And that is exactly true, isn't it?
Yes, so.
Those were things that you thought of,
Yes, so.
not Michelle Anderson.
Yes, so.
You're not mixing up your pronouns there, are you?
No, sir, I am not.
And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the information that came out during the testimony of the fellow by the name of Stephen LePage. Do you recall that?
Yes, so.
It seems like he was here a week ago, but I think it was just yesterday morning.
I believe you're correct, yes.
I'm I'm going to put up on the screen here Exhibit 304. You recall Mr. LePage talking about Exhibit 304, which is the letter that Michelle Anderson wrote to you, correct? I'm sorry, I'm going to give you a copy.
Doesn't look like the letter she wrote to me.
For clarity, is that the original exhibit on the overhead, or is that a copy of the?
That's a book.
That,
Let me hand you, Mr. McEnroe, the original of the Exhibit
okay.
304.
Okay. Yeah, that is the same one.
You heard Mr. LePage testify about that letter, Exhibit 304, which is a letter addressed to you, Joe.
Yes, sir.
That's in Michelle Anderson's handwriting.
Yes, sir.
You have to speak up a bit, please.
Yes, sir.
Then you recognize her handwriting.
Yes, sir.
And that letter was sent through Stephen LePage.
Yes, sir.
And you received it,
Yes, sir.
and you brought it to the attention of your attorneys.
Yes, sir.
And that letter talks about something that you talked about on direct examination. Do you recall? John the
Yes.
Longshoreman.
Yes, sir.
You testified on cross-examination that John the Longshoreman, two things. You said it's that John the Longshoreman is Michelle Anderson's spirit guide,
Yes, sir.
and we learned that he bears a striking resemblance to the Gordon Fisherman's guy.
I would not agree with that. I would say more of his outfit might be taken as that. He did not have, in fact, doesn't the Gordon Fisherman have a beard and a beret? Or isn't he the one with the yellow slicker and hood?
Gordon Fisherman guy?
I really don't remember.
Well, don't you remember describing John the Longshoreman as the guy with the yellow slicker?
Yeah, but the Gordon Fisherman guy, he's got a beard, right?
No.
Neither do I. That's why I'm trying to, I recall that he has short, dark hair, curly hair, somewhat olive complexion.
I'm not trying to be funny. Are we describing the Gordon Fisherman guy or John the Longshoreman?
We're describing John the Longshoreman because I'm not quite certain exactly what the fisherman looks like, and I wanted to make sure that we have the right description. So he was a younger gentleman, about in his early 30s, I'd say, and muscular build. Sometimes there was two images of him, one with yellow slicker, one with a gray sweater that he wears with the sleeves rolled up to his forearms, and I believe some kind of, not jeans, but some other kind of pants.
And when you, in all due respect, I'm following up on a question Mr. Presti asked about the Gordon Fisherman guy. Remember that? He
Are
asked you.
we talking about the Gordon Fisherman guy now, or are we actually talking about John?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
So we actually are talking about the Gordon Fisherman guy now, right?
Right.
Okay. Just making sure, sorry.
So Mr. Presti asked you how John the Longshoreman came to be Michelle Anderson's spirit guide. Remember that?
Yeah, I believe so.
And you told him.
Yeah, he's always been her spirit guide and would stay behind her so that she wouldn't see him because she was so worried about, so hard to trust. She would have such a hard time trusting anyone. Yeah.
And you said that, in fact, you had to describe to Michelle Anderson her own spirit guide.
Yes, this is true.
And you said that she didn't know if he was male or female,
This is as well true.
and that you tried to contact John the Longshoreman through Crow.
That my ability to describe him was through Crow, actually, yes.
And you said he's between 5'10" and 6 feet tall. Correct?
I'm not sure if I gave exactly that size, but he's about average height, yeah.
You You said he has strong forearms,
He has a strong build in general.
wears a rain slicker.
As I said, at time, those two images of him, one with a slicker and one without, as I just described.
And very muscular, as you just described.
Yes, sir.
You testified that Michelle Anderson was very interested in having a spirit guide. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir. And that she felt that she had one, but that it was somebody who would always be, for she had actually said that she had actually spoken with this one and been had some conversation with him previously, but did not know who he or she was, because in her imaging, she or he was always behind and at an angle in a sort of blind spot where she couldn't see or really sense who this person was.
So he's kind of lurking behind her shoulder.
In a way, yeah. Kind of just hanging in the blind spot because she had such a hard time trusting males or females, yeah. She was of the opinion that he was somebody muscular and he or she was somebody muscular and large, but that was all she really knew.
You told Mr. Prestia that you and Michelle Anderson talked about your spirit guides every day.
She was very interested in that. It was actually that she would be the one bringing it up, and we would talk about spirit guides and other metaphysical stuff like that.
Keep your voice up a little bit.
I'm sorry. We would talk about spirit guides and metaphysical stuff like that. She was always asking me about those such things.
And not only did you talk about your spirit guides, you and Michelle Anderson, every day, you sometimes talk throughout the day about your spirit guides.
Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, I think you told Mr. Prestia.
Actually, I said sometimes in the morning and sometimes in the evening. My schedule was flipped sometimes because there was a number of times where I was working at night. So.
Let me see if I have this straight. Your testimony on direct examination was that you introduced Michelle Anderson to John the Longshoreman because she really couldn't see him.
Yes, sir.
And the reason why is because she has trust issues.
Yes, sir.
And you told us on, whenever it was, last Thursday, that you made the introduction of John the Longshoreman to Michelle Anderson through Crow.
Yes, sir. That's how I was able to describe who this person was to her, yes.
And when you're talking about you and Michelle Anderson talking about your spirit guides every day, you're talking about Crow and Longshoreman, and John the Longshoreman.
Not just them, but also we would talk about just esoteric stuff in general. It's not just the spirit guides, but also like the nature of God and whatnot. For example, when we had spoken previously about how there were some people who might, the idea that there were some people that were dark entities or different types of entities. This was actually something that she had initially gotten from reading Sylvia Brown. I wasn't too sure about that, but I had eventually come to believe that she was correct in that. At this point, I have some very strong doubts about that.
You guys talked about this for years, it sounds like.
Yes, sir, we did. She was very, this is something she thought about quite a lot.
So there's sort of the four of you there. There's you, Michelle Anderson, Crow, and John the Longshoreman. I don't know if foursome's the right word, but you guys are basically hanging out together every day for years.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, when I likened it to kind of a guardian angel, they're always there. Yeah.
So, fair to say that Michelle Anderson then is aware of Crow, your spirit guide, and you're aware of John the Longshoreman, her spirit guide, because you did the introductions.
Yes.
And you did the introduction through
She
Crow.
she asked me to if I could figure out if I could can't remember exactly how she put it, but sort of introduce her to tell her and show her who her spirit guide was. So I did.
Let me ask you, looking at Exhibit 304, and there's a copy, the original is there on the table next to you, and
So
it's up on the screen here as well.
yes, sir.
It says, quote, Joe, I want you to know that I've spoken to John Longshoreman for advice. John is a friend of that gentleman that is nicknamed Crow. The two of them have possession of tremendous wisdom, intuition, and insight.
Yes.
So it is with great obligation that I feel compelled to pass along his advice. John said that you will not succeed in being acquitted regardless of what you have been told. Later she continues, but you don't have to take my second-hand advice. Ask Crow. He'll confirm that John said this. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, so you have.
Can you explain something to me? If Michelle Anderson is familiar with Crow,
Yes.
and you're familiar with John the Longshoreman,
Yes.
why would she have to explain to you in such detail in a letter written in July of 2008 who they were?
I do not know. I really do not understand how she was. I do not think that I could speak to the longshoreman, which, as I said previously, I've always thought was named Stephen. I do not believe I could speak to her spirit guide without her being around, and how she could possibly speak to Crow without me being around is baffling to me, honestly. I do not know why she would go and say they have tremendous wisdom and knowledge and stuff. These are things we've already established.
Well, that's my point. You guys have been hanging out together, the four of you. You're fast friends
Yeah.
for years.
Yeah, no, I
You
mean,
talk to you
these.
every day about this.
Yeah, I mean, that would be like me trying to go off and like tell her that you're a very good prosecutor. She would already know this.
I'm what?
A very good prosecutor. She would already know this. You were a professional in your field. This is the same thing. She already knows this.
So after years of the four of you hanging out,
Yeah.
in July of 2008, she has to explain to you, quote, John, the longshoreman,
Yes.
is a friend of that gentleman that is nicknamed Crow. Something that you already, in theory, knew.
Something that I already very much knew. Yeah. I don't understand why she pointed this out. No.
And similarly, she felt the need in July of 2008 to explain to you that Crow and John the longshoreman, quote, have possession of tremendous wisdom, intuition, and insight, unquote. That's something you already knew.
Yes.
But there's more, right, in that letter.
Yes.
If you're familiar with John the longshoreman, why would Michelle Anderson feel the need to write, quote, she felt compelled to pass along his advice. John said that you will not succeed in being acquitted regardless of what you have been told. Well, don't have to take my second-hand advice. Ask Crow. He'll confirm that John said this, unquote. Did I read that right?
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense, does it?
Especially since I had not at any point really believed that I would be acquitted. Well, so there was no point that if she was talking to John and John really was talking to Crow, that she would be in the under assumption that I was believing that I would stand to be acquitted at any point.
Let me see if I get this straight. If Michelle Anderson is talking to John the longshoreman,
Yes.
and you're talking to Crow,
No. If she is talking to John, or rather Crow through John, then she would be aware of the fact that I have not had at any point any belief that I would be acquitted of these things that I did. And so I do not understand why she would be assuming otherwise.
well, if she's talking to John the longshoreman, and
Yes.
you're talking to Crow,
Yes.
and apparently John and Crow are talking to each other,
Since on the same level, yes.
Michelle Anderson wouldn't have to explain any of this to you because you'd already know it because you're talking to Crow yourself.
Yes. Exactly.
You think there's a chance Crow's keeping something from you, or what?
I think there's a chance that he keeps many things from me.
Is there a chance at all, Mr. McEnroe, that you're making all this up?
No, sir.
Because her letter makes no sense, does it?
No, sir, it does not. I agree.
In theory, you already knew all this.
Yes, sir. Not only directly from me. I mean, not only did she learn of these things from me, but I'd also gotten her several books, and she'd had several books speaking about these things even before I met her. So these are things that we both would have known already.
In fact, even though there was a no contact order,
Mm-hmm.
you could actually talk to her because you could talk to Crow. He could talk to John the longshoreman, who could talk to her. That's why we're getting around the no contact order.
One is that had not occurred to me. As I've stated previously, I don't know how she could possibly have been able to speak to Crow, because typically one has to be at least somewhere near the other person that you're whose guide you're trying to talk to. I don't. Even the term guide, it seems kind of weird. Before I met Michelle, I would call it guardian, and it's only after being with Michelle that I shortened it, used the term that Sylvia Brown would use, which is spirit guide. So I don't understand why, like you're saying, why she would have to go to the effort of making a letter. If she felt that she could speak directly to Crow, okay, or even through John to Crow, then why would she feel the need to send me a letter? I don't understand that either. It's strange to me, but I don't think she would be able to speak to Crow anyway.
The other explanation could be, you guys are making this up.
It could be, but it's not.
Now, we talked about, at some length, about the alibi that you prepared for the police.
Yes, sir.
And not only did you prepare an alibi and a false story
Yes, sir.
to lie to the police,
Yes,
you
sir.
actually considered the consequences of being caught, did you not?
Yeah. Yeah, I considered the possibility. We had considered that originally her idea was that either everything would just work out or we'd be able to commit suicide by cop, basically. And I did not want to kill anybody else or hurt anybody else, and we'd ended up throwing away the guns. And so we got to, as we're dealing with this, it's like, okay, so in fact, it was even before everybody died that the idea that it couldn't be worse than that jail or even execution wouldn't be worse than what we were already dealing with. So
you consider the consequences of your alibi not working, correct?
I'd say that we consider the consequences of the alibi not working before before I even made the alibi. So yes.
You consider the consequences of coming up against something other than a podunk police department.
I'm not the one who was putting forth that it would only be a podunk police department, but yes.
You discussed this with Dr. Sally Johnson in June of 2011, did you not?
Yes, sir, I believe I did.
And you told her that you would give the police your alibi. Recall that?
Yes, sir, I did.
And if it didn't work, you told Dr. Johnson, you wouldn't have to worry about rent anymore. Right?
Well, yeah.
And you said, quote, worse things could happen, right?
Yeah.
And you told Dr. Johnson that you decided it was, quote, okay to be executed anyway.
Yes.
You talked again with Dr. Johnson.
Yes.
July of 2011, correct?
I believe so.
You talked about the realization that you might be caught,
Yes.
And you said that you did have that realization, correct?
Yes.
You said, quote, had a vague idea we might be caught, unquote.
Yes.
And you were okay with that
Yes.
because your attitude was just execute us.
Yes. At that point, if I didn't want any harm to befall her, but I did not mind if I was executed.
And at that point, you mean in July of 2011?
Actually, at that point, I was speaking directly of when things were, when all this was, all of this awfulness was coming up and actually happening. At this point, I have some slight preference, but it's not. What happens, happens. I've made my errors, and I will pay for them, and that's how it should be.
So Dr. Johnson, that quote, we wanted to die, unquote.
Yes.
You figure going to jail wouldn't be so bad.
Before everybody died, we thought that jail would probably be better than what we were living with.
In fact, you repeated that 4 or 5 months ago in November of 2014, did you not?
Yes, sir, I believe I did.
You told Dr. Johnson about how you and Michelle Anderson considered the consequences of what you were about to do before you did it. Correct?
Not all the consequences by any means. We certainly didn't consider
Did or didn't?
consider the loss or just the awfulness of it. No, the only things that we were considering would be, okay, well, if we end up in jail, would that be an awful thing? If we end up being executed, would that be an awful thing? So what about those things? Not the moral consequences or anything else. I kept trying to, as I said previously, she didn't have any interest in the moral consequences. I would try to tell her about that, and she would just say that I was being unreasonable, or that I wasn't listening to the things she was talking about, or that I didn't care enough, or that I wasn't doing, for whatever reason, I wasn't paying attention or wasn't doing it right. So.
Mr. McEnroe, it's true, is it not, that you and Michelle Anderson, when you planned these murders, when you executed these murders, you actively considered the possible consequences, including, quote, the chance, quote, if all fails, there's a chance we'd get executed, unquote.
I would say beforehand, yes.
And you said, quote, that was okay, that's what we were hoping for, unquote.
Yes.
And 6 people had to die.
That's the thing, is that it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if as far as I knew, why am I going to this huge effort to try and protect somebody who literally wants to die? I can't explain that. I can't explain that to myself. It does not make any sense. That's the thing with a lot of this, is that there's so many things about it that, if you're looking at it in a sober light, do not make any sense.
If you're looking at it.
In a sober light, they do not make any sense, and they didn't make sense then. I would say these things, and I would point out, look, this is not right. This is not. What about this? What about this? This doesn't work for this reason. And she would just say, look, trust me, I know what I'm doing. Oh, look, don't you trust me? You shouldn't doubt me. And that I was being unreasonable and just totally, look, I know what I'm doing. Trust me. Everything's going to be okay. And it's one of those things where she didn't even bother trying to make sense at the time. Just, this is what's going to happen, and you're going to go with it. So,
Mr. McEnroe,
so
before these murders ever happened, you contemplated not only doing them, but what might happen if you could not get away with those crimes. You actually considered the possibility of execution, and you said you were okay with that.
yes, so. And so we could have just saved everybody a lot of effort and just killed ourselves. I agree.
Mr. McEnroe, what happened on December 24th, 2007 was all about money, wasn't it?
No, so not as far as I know.
It wasn't about some claim of abuse, was it?
As far as I knew, it was about a claim of abuse.
Or some need, it wasn't about some need for closure.
As far as I know, yes, it was about this need for closure. As far as I knew at the time, it was about this claim of abuse and about dangerousness. And there was that $3,000, but as far as I knew, that was more about betrayal than anything, which is, of course, is obviously obvious. Very ironic, considering everything.
This was pure greed, wasn't it, Mr. McEnroe?
Absolutely not on my part. I was trying to protect her.
Mr. McEnroe, you and Michelle Anderson were upset because there was a claim that Scott owed her money.
I was upset about that, but that's not something I would kill somebody over. If it had been up to me, I would have just stopped talking to the guy.
We heard your voice on that tape when you
Yes.
said, when Detective Pavlovich asked, well, did it look like Scott had forgotten? You said, no, he knew. You were angry.
Yes, sir, I was upset. That doesn't mean I would want to kill him over that. I would just stop dealing with him.
You were upset with Wayne because he seemed to be taking Scott's side. Correct?
Though, I wasn't actually... I was upset with Wayne because I thought we were in danger from him. I can't even say what we would be in danger from. I mean, after all, we wanted to die. So how in the hell could we be in danger of anything? That doesn't make any sense.
Mr. McEnroe, is it not true that Wayne Anderson made the fatal mistake when his daughter raised this subject? He made the mistake of saying, just let it go. You're living rent-free on my property. Let it go.
I think I did not know about this, but unfortunately I believe you're correct. I believe that that's what happened. And it baffles me to say that because I was the one who was paying the rent. Before we moved there, I was the one who was paying the rent. So I would just went back to paying the rent. I didn't mind. We were living on their land. I didn't mind paying rent or whatever at all.
And you were angry about this claim that Scott had not fixed the car. Remember that?
I was upset about that, yes.
In fact, you were not only upset at the fact that Scott had not fixed the car, but you believed that he was driving around in the car. Remember that?
That was an assertion of force that I accepted, yes.
That made you furious, didn't it?
I would not say furious, no. It made me upset, but not furious.
Well, when you spoke with Detective Pavlovich on December 26, 2007, you spoke about your motive repeatedly, did you not?
I don't know, sir.
It was money, was it not?
No, sir, it was not. Maybe for her, but not for me. And I don't believe it was her sole thing because when Eric asked her, why are you doing this? And she said, because you hate me. You always hated me. There was so much anger and venom in her voice. I can't say that it was only about money for her either.
You were angry because you and Michelle Anderson believed that her parents were not supporting her in the dispute with Scott Anderson.
There was some upset about that, but that's didn't have anything to do with me.
You were angry about her parents not paying you guys back for improvements that you claim you made to the trailer.
So all of the improvements and materials that I bought, Michelle would go to her mother, get the payback for that, and pocket it herself. I was not looking at getting any of the money back at all that I put into the trailer.
Let me get this straight. You're now testifying that Michelle Anderson was getting repaid for the improvements to the trailer, but she was secretly pocketing the money and keeping it from you?
No, sir, she was not secretly pocketing the money at all. She said, okay, I'm going to just keep this, okay? And I said, yeah, go ahead. When I had bought the curtains, when I had bought various floor planking and flooring, yeah, I had bought those, and she went to her mother to get the money back. And when she got the money back, she kept it. And she said, I'm just going to keep it. I'm like, yeah, go ahead, I don't care.
So any claim that you were upset about not being reimbursed for those improvements, that can't possibly be true if she was actually paid by Judy Anderson.
Yeah, the only reimbursements, the only items that I could say that she might have said that she wasn't being reimbursed for was maybe the washing machine and the fridge.
When were you supposed to start paying rent? First of the year?
I don't know. I'd actually drawn up a rent contract based off of one that Wayne had given to Michelle to bring to me. So I'd actually made up a rent contract and put it on a disc and given it to Michelle to take to him. And we had originally been set up to start at $200 and work our way up over the course of a year. She came back down and said that after a year, that for a year we wouldn't be paying rent, and then after that we started paying rent, which seemed incredibly generous to me. But
when the subject of paying rent came up in December of 2007, when was it supposed to start?
I had actually forgotten about it, and I don't remember being brought into this conversation at all about paying rent.
So rent wasn't a motive for you?
No, sir, it was not. If it had come up, I would not have had a problem with paying rent.
So
I was living on the property. I certainly would not have had a problem with paying rent for it.
Mr. McEnroe, are you aware that you mentioned money or the car or something to do with your finances as a motive more than 9 times to Detective Pavlovich?
I have gone through... I remember actually looking at the various things that you were mentioning. Money, the car. I still have to say it was not about money. And there was a large part of it that was about the car, but I mean, if you're going like saying that the various things that I put in there as distractions, like how he had taken in 500, $500,000, it's like that was as relevant as those 4 people who I should not have brought in the first place. And was it 4? Whatever. However many people I had went and thrown out as alibis, which, let's be completely honest here, I should not have done it. Was completely wrong in doing it in the first place anyway. So.
Since you've reviewed the statements, you're aware that Michelle Anderson spoke about money as a motive more than 35 times.
Yeah, I heard her statement for the first time in this court, and that really shocked me, actually.
So you had no problem then with Wayne's attitude about the money that you guys claimed was owed to Michelle? You had no problem with Wayne about that?
I was upset about that, but it's certainly not something I would have hurt him over, and it's certainly not something I would have killed him over. That I would have hurt him over, and certainly not something I would have killed him over. I mean, that's between them.
But you were particularly frustrated about it, weren't you?
I was frustrated, but it's not something I would hurt anybody over.
Well, isn't it true, Mr. McEnroe, you had a sense of entitlement about that money?
Absolutely not.
You recall telling Dr. Sally Johnson, quote, "If Wayne just wants people to get along, why didn't he take the debt on himself," unquote?
I remember saying something along those lines, and that was something that she had actually put forth. Yeah, I felt that there was some degree of entitlement to the money, but not of my own. I felt that she was entitled to the money that she had loaned Scott. But it was not my entitlement, it was her entitlement.
And you thought that Wayne would just give you guys that money?
That's the idea that she put forth, and I accepted that. That was probably correct, if that's what... In fact, that might have really helped everybody get along, yeah.
And when he didn't, you were angry.
When he didn't, I was frustrated.
Those are all the questions I have for today. Your Honor, if we could take a break.
Ladies and gentlemen, please leave your hands depending on the chairs. I'll excuse you to the jury room and we will release you for the evening momentarily.